Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Off Script with Pastor Jared and
Pastor Dillon.
Pastor Caleb.
We're all here. It must be Friday.
Yep.
So, good day, Tampa Bay. Hope you all are doing well. We're going to chat today about a pretty interesting topic.
Stop rhyming.
And I will say this is probably one, if you have kids in the car, maybe not the best one. So I'm going to give a disclaimer for the little kids on this particular one, because today we're going to talk about some tough topics, perhaps, but it depends on where it goes. But definitely some stuff relating to prisons and crimes and punishments and things like that. So could have some sensitive topics come up. Just want to let you guys know that before we get too far into it, because the topic of today really is relating to what is just as it pertains to prisons and crime, and maybe some discussion on death penalty and things like that. So I'll tell you guys where all this came from. We've been talking about it, but I'll tell everybody where this came from in my mind, because of course it's been brewing for a little bit in my head. But it came recently because of this Bryan Kohberger case that's been in the news a lot lately. And you guys might not know that name, but you might know the Idaho murderer who killed. I'll just say what it says here. He killed those in Boise, Idaho. There were some folks at the University of Idaho. He killed Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. So 4 people died. He killed them with a knife in their sleep in a dorm at the University of Idaho. Huge news a couple of years ago. And finally it went through the system, went through to sentencing, where he was going to be tried for it. And it says here on July 23rd, which at this time of recording is like 3 weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Bryan Kohberger pleaded guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of burglary for the November 2022 murders of those students. He received 4 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus 10 years for burglary at the Boise, Idaho courthouse. So avoided the death penalty. So a lot of people followed this case. It's kind of already gone into the true crime world, which I think is a weird thing in itself that people get into that. But as this was posted, this information was posted a couple weeks ago, I remember on social media, I started to read the comments, which is always a very dangerous thing to do.
Yes, it is.
Started reading the comments below the post, and I'll just say, I'll be general in some of the things that were said in the comments, but it was uniform. It was so uniform in the comments. And I'll just say generally what they were kind of all saying was some form of, oh boy, can't wait to see what happens to this guy in prison. You know, wink, wink. And you kind of knew what all the posts were getting at. Oh, he's going to really get it in prison. Oh, man, you know, insert sex joke, insert beat up, you know, being beat up, insert getting shivved in the cafeteria line, like all the things that we know happen in prison.
Thus the disclaimer.
Thus the initial disclaimer. You know, obviously that's a part of what we're talking about today. But that, so, and there was an excitement in the commenters about like, oh, he's going to really get it in prison. And I think we can all agree, probably true, right?
Yep. Unfortunate.
So he's going to get it in prison. So what's going to happen is this guy's going to go to prison. He's got 4 life terms plus 10 years, and he's going to try to navigate this prison system for the rest of his life. And he's probably going to get beat up, and he's probably going to be sexually assaulted, and he's probably going to at some point have a attempt on his life made. And he's going to be moved to and fro, maximum security, this cell block. He's going to have to, you know, make friends with a big bruiser who will probably, he'll have to perform sexual favors in turn for protection. He'll have to probably join some gang. You know, we all kind of have watched prison documentaries, right? You know, like the prison system is pretty rough. Like it's a world unto itself that kind of mimics gang life. A lot of people will tell you when you get to prison, you have to kind of make a choice quickly of what gang you're going to join. Are you going to join the skinhead white guy Nazi gang? Are you going to join the black, group? Are you going to join the Hispanic group, or whatever? And you have to kind of determine, are you going to fight? Or are you going to take it? It's terrible, but like that's the world that you live. You're going to immediately get challenged. Someone's going to challenge you, and you're going to have to decide whether you're going to put up a fight and maybe get beat or killed, or if you're going to become sort of the passive, I don't want to say any bad words, but the person who gets taken advantage of.
Well, you call them a cockroach. They do anything to survive.
Yeah, so you just have to take on the personality of whatever. And so there was an excitement in the comments that this guy was going to have to go through this situation. And so we'll start with my first thought, my first point. First point being, and I want you guys to kind of react to what I'm saying. All right. I think the sign, there's a inherent built-in problem here in that we're excited as a people about what's going to happen to him in prison as the true form of justice for his crimes, rather than the actual governmental punishment for his crimes. You follow what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah.
So it basically, we're feeling like the true justice that's going to happen for a guy who kills 4 college students, which is awful.
Burglarized.
The true punishment for that is going to be the things that happen to him in prison as a byproduct of a poorly run prison, rather than the sentence which comes from the code, the law code, and the judge and the jury. So my first big point would be the worst thing that happens to you because of a terrible crime should be the punishment for the crime, not the things that happen in jail, not the things that happen in prison.
Yeah.
Agree?
Yeah, agree. We've lost that sense. Honestly, we've lost faith in the justice system. By this means, we all have that innate sense of judgment, but yet clearly we can see it does not get taken out through the justice system, but through prisons and the lack of a turning. Oh, I'm going to pay the guard. He's going to turn the eye over here, something like that.
Also, prison without all that is just a glorified timeout.
Right.
Like they get 3 meals a day. They get to hang out, work out,
exercise.
They get to have a job. All these things. I'm not saying that that's not good and we shouldn't provide, but at some point, are they really being punished?
Right.
I think it's also hard because this guy, if you read up on him, he had a background in criminology. Mm-hmm. So he's a little bit step above just murdering these people. I imagine he knows, hey, these things I could do, how I can kind of get away with this, and so I think this it probably was premeditated. I haven't heard the court cases and stuff fully, but this is not just a random killing.
Well, this leads to another point, and that I think I would just say, if someone has killed 4 people, they should be killed themselves. The death penalty is appropriate in that situation. Biblically, I believe Christians can support the death penalty, and I would say that is the just penalty for someone who killed 4 college students in the prime of their life in their sleep with a knife, brutally. That's what should happen to you. So he gets a tax-funded, life in prison. That's not just. But I would also say it's not just to say he should be gang raped and possibly shivved and have to navigate a gang system and choose a side. And that's also not just. And I would just say that we're doing the extreme case of a four-time murderer, but there are people in prisons who didn't murder. There are people that did bad things, but
why is burglarization, someone stealing something but not hurting anybody, the same as, a 4-count murder?
Right. So if you robbed a bank, for example, and you didn't kill anyone, you still have to go to prison and navigate this terrible system.
If you just robbed a grocery store of food and it happened to be more than $500, like you go to jail.
Yeah, and you should have a penalty.
Yes.
But you shouldn't have to maybe get raped.
Yeah.
Because you burglarized a store. Like, that's not a fair penalty. That doesn't work together. And like, the conditions in jail should not be bad. I believe that. They should not be terrible, inhumane, but the punishment for the crime should be fitting. That's what I'm saying. The punishment for the crime should be the roughest thing.
Right.
The worst, the thing that it puts, I bet you most people are more afraid of the prison life than they are
in prison.
Than they are of the punishment for the crime.
Right.
Like, because there really is no punishment for the crime. The prison is the punishment.
Right. I mean, that's what they do for the young kids who are like starting to kind of get into that world. They bring them into this room with, guys from prison to scare them about what, would happen to them in prison. Not just you would go to jail. It would be like, hey, this giant guy is going to come and beat you up.
And I just, like, most people are willing to spank their kids for the right thing. Are you guys all spankers, or at least willing spankers?
Not there yet.
For the right situation.
Benjamin will have consequences for his actions where I will discipline him.
I wouldn't say I'm I love to spank or anything, but there are situations where I'm willing to spank.
Mine is mainly if she puts herself or others in physical danger. She runs out into the road. Yeah, don't run out into the road because you could get run over.
Yeah. So with those situations, like, we even inherently know as parents that the thing that actually motivates them not to do it again is the punishment itself.
Right.
Needs to be the actual bad thing that
until
happens
they're
to
able
them.
to learn like that why.
So
for children.
We don't have that with this prison system. The
Are
prison
you saying
is the
we
punishment.
should bring back 40 lashes?
Well, we're going there. We're going there in a moment.
39.
So
39, yeah.
So that's probably my first thing is I don't think it's right that someone who goes to prison, I think it's unjust, I think it's unbiblical, and it's not right that someone who goes to prison has to navigate a system of gangs and sexual assault and maybe getting murdered and all of these things, and a corrupt under the table payment system. I think that's wrong. I also think it's wrong that someone who has killed 4 people gets to live the rest of their life. I think that he should be killed for that. I think he should have to do that. And I think that we are far too lenient on what qualifies for the death penalty, especially when it comes to like things involving children and, rape. I think we need to go open up the willingness for the death penalty. If I was king of the world, I'd give them their last meal. I'd send in the best chaplain we have. I'd sit down and share the gospel with them. And then I'd say, because of what you've done, you still have to die. You can have eternal life, but you have to pay for what you've done here in this life. And I would pull the switch with a clean conscience.
Well, and I think because you're going to that to show, hey, these actions have consequences, that'll put people in shape too.
Yeah, and it needs to be. Another problem we have is it needs to be relatively soon after they've committed the crime. Like this whole death row for 30 years thing, that's not justice. For someone to kill somebody and then have to sit on death row and eat, food and go through this thing, and we keep them alive for 30 years, and then finally maybe they get the death penalty. That's not justice either. It needs to be, if we know now, not if we don't know. For
that's
sure.
My thing is like, what if there's a question? What if there's a shadow? Like, because most of those death row are appealing over and over and again, and some of them are appealing to just get out of it, of what they've done. But some of them were wrongly convicted.
Right, and there's different standards of evidence, and there's different
for sure.
levels of certainty in each case. I think if we know.
Then there's a video of him and he shows his face to the video like, okay, we know that guy did it.
Yeah. I mean,
there's undoubtable proof.
Yes.
You just
when police officer walks in to see them murdering someone. Okay.
Yeah. It needs to be done within a year at that point, and that would, I think, really help deter for sure. So that's its own thing, that the greatest punishment shouldn't be a poorly run prison system. That shouldn't happen to somebody. The punishment itself should be what the law prescribes, and it should be done through a governmental function. the state or whatever should be the arm of punishment, not, Bruno in your cell. That should not be the thing, like the worst thing that happens to you. It should be the state of Tennessee fulfilling the governmental role of punishment. So that was like my first thought.
Yes, just his first thought. 10 minutes in, first thought.
Which led me to then a different question, which you raised with the 40 lashes, which is, okay, what is the biblical case for prison or not prison? Is there a biblical view that would support or not support the concept of keeping someone locked up in prison for life, or at least the way that we do prison, which is that's what happens to you for 90% of your crimes. You get sent to a room behind bars with other criminals, and you have to navigate a prison system for 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, life, whatever it is, based on your crime. And the crime determines the number of years. And so then I thought, well, if only there was a time when God had a government and prescribed different penalties for different crimes. Oh, wait, there was. That happened. It's called the Old Testament. It's called the law. Israel was a nation that had laws and had punishments.
That's all of Leviticus.
And so you can read it, you can read it and see what they were. And I understand we are not Israel and we are not in the nation of Israel, and there's a difference in covenant and there's a difference in America, and I get all of that. I get all that. But would it not be helpful to look at the one time when God did have a nation with laws and prescribed penalties and at least compare it to what we're doing?
I mean, if we take the moral sense from the Old Testament of like don't murder, don't steal, things like that, that comes from the Old Testament too.
Of course.
We should at least look at the punishments that they were given when someone did that.
Yes.
If we're going to take the moral standing on it, we should look at the punishment.
And keeping in mind that God is just, we are not. So when this wrath and these consequences and judgment is put on people, it's that understanding of, when you did that podcast on Jericho and them slaying everybody, it's a reminder that we are corrupt, sinful people.
Yeah.
And that this was the consequences given to the people by the Lord. So therefore, it is right and just to perform these things.
So all of us have in front of us here.
Not you.
We all have in front of us a document that I pulled this morning that seeks to compile the punishments for crimes and infractions in Old Testament law.
Is this when you say you can find the document in the show notes?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Isaac.
So it tries to take all the various punishments of the Old Testament and group them into what the frequency of the punishment tends to be. So kind of combine them into categories and to see what tends to be a punishment for a certain kind of crime in the Old Testament. So my first thing that I'll ask you guys as you're thumbing through here, is there anything that is like our prison system today?
Kind of. I mean, the cutting off from the people is kind of that way. Like being banished, having to go away.
Yeah.
Kind of.
But they're not still free in a room with bars.
No, they're not. No. And the other one would be, that isn't listed in here, at least I didn't see it, was the sanctuary city idea where they had to, what was it called? It wasn't sanctuary, but
refuge
city, where they had to go and live in that city, and if they ever left, then their the relatives of who they murdered could come and get them. Which I didn't see. I may have missed it, but
there's nothing like.
But nothing in the you're in this
not to this extent.
10 by 10 room forever, and you can come out for an hour a day and lift some weights.
So just for the listeners, you don't have the paper in front of you. Let me just run through what we're looking at here.
Check the show notes.
It gives a lot of punishments that are akin to being cut off from the people. So that could potentially be like, you can't live here anymore, sort of banishment. Like you can't be in Israel. You have to go live somewhere else. And a lot of those are just really terrible things. A lot of sexual sins if you go through, and that's heavy on your Leviticus 18, Leviticus 19:20, those kind of
cursing God, worshiping a deity,
sexual
sacrificing
intercourse
one
with various
child
members
to
of
Molech,
family.
eating animal fat.
So,
we can have ribeyes now.
Drinking blood.
This is a really good list.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen this, it just because it gives you, hey, here's what happened.
But the whole first page is like sexual sins.
Yeah, it is.
Various incest kind of combinations and things like that, bestiality.
Failure to circumcise yourself.
So those are all cut off. That's a pretty common one. We see that, to be cut off from your people. That's the number one offense by frequency. And number
36 offenses equal that punishment.
Number 2, it says are death penalty offenses.
And there's 30.
It gives about 30 of these. That's an estimate. But so just to kind of go through some of the death penalty offenses would be premeditated murder, kidnapping for enslavement, striking or cursing a parent, disobedient, rebellious son. That's rough. Idolatry, enticing others to idolatry, false prophecy, blasphemy, Sabbath violations, witchcraft, sorcery, medium, necromancy, child sacrifice to Moloch, adultery, incest with father's wife, incest with daughter-in-law, incest with mother and daughter, homosexual activity, bestiality, prostitution, rape, false witness in court. It goes on, a few more things, but these carry the death penalty. These kind of things are...
Assault causing miscarriage to death of pregnant woman.
Interesting, isn't it?
It is.
So there's a lot of things,
watch out, Planned Parenthood.
far more things in these times that had the death penalty than what we had. So if you go beyond the death penalty, it's kind of what we're talking about, to like the normal crimes that people commit.
Robbery.
Next, you see a lot under what's called restitution or compensation or fines. Now, we do have a civil court in our country for fines, but look at this, like robbery and theft, though, at these times were dealt with not as a civil offense, but as a criminal offense. Mm-hmm. You have to restore. It says you have to restore what was stolen plus 20%. So think about this in our time. If you stole from somebody or you carjacked somebody, that's stealing or theft. You would have to buy them a new car
and then give them 20%
of the value of the car.
That'd stop you from stealing cars in a heartbeat.
And so, you could say, well, what do you do if the person's poor and can't do it? Well, here we go. Get ready. You would go into a form of slavery.
Work.
At the time.
Yeah.
You would go into forced work to get the value out of you.
Yep.
And that was what was done at the time.
And that's not even the highest one. That's just general theft. Livestock theft, killed or sold, is 5-fold of ox or 4-fold of sheep.
Yeah.
100 shekels to father if you false accuse one's wife. I mean, there's a bunch of things.
Yeah, and these are Leviticus, Exodus 22. A lot of these come from Exodus 21 and 22, Leviticus 5 and 6, if you want to read those things. But there's a whole category here of restitution. And we don't really have that. What can I tell you what we have? We have insurance. That's what we have in our world.
Insurance and timeout.
Yeah, well, exactly. But the problem is, you might get paid back if someone steals your car. You might get paid back for your car. Mm-hmm. And first of all, it might not be fair. Sometimes you don't get back the value that you lost.
Or it takes 4 months,
right? Like
one of our members have been dealing with.
But the problem then is that person didn't pay it back.
No.
You paid it back through insurance over time.
Yeah.
You're kind of paying yourself.
Yeah, because then they're going to jack your rates up because you had a car stolen.
It's all part of the insurance program, where people pay in, monthly, and then something bad happens and then you get a payout. So because we don't do restitution and we don't do fines and we don't make the actual criminal pay for it, we make ourselves pay for it over time through an insurance system. So not doing this has created an entire secondary system. And I would argue that it's not quite as fair as making the actual thief pay for it.
Oh.
The thief should pay for it if he stole.
Mm-hmm.
But you get into that thing. People are uncomfortable with what if he can't pay? then it gets uncomfortable.
Then he goes to work camp jail.
Work camp.
Where work camp then pays you back after a while. Or he has to serve, that in the jail. And the jail is the new insurance.
Maybe we would have a system where there is the insurance system pays you immediately, but then he pays the insurance back over time.
Yeah. Or has to, go to work camp jail.
So that's another one. Another one in here that's interesting is they had a system of sacrificial offerings for things that if you did. So this would be kind of like a church.
Yeah, this is much more
like a church discipline system.
Unclean. Most of them are unclean except for lying.
Yeah.
Breach of trust or deceit is a guilt offering plus restitution plus 20%.
Yeah.
And that's really the only one that's not just for like offering.
So these are like ritual impurities or, some stealing from the altar or sanctuary.
Touching the unclean.
Touching something unclean. So, they have a whole system in here for guilt offerings and sin offerings. And I think it's important to remember these were expensive. If you did breach one of the civil codes, it was quite expensive to go and buy a ram or one of these animals
or
to
do that. Or even
just
a dove or, the grain. You're giving up your livelihood. You're giving up food.
But the point was to show that you've sinned against God,
right,
and you have to make it right with God. And we don't have that in our law today. That was we'd have kind of a church discipline system, but it's nowhere near this. So we really don't have an equivalent of that. The next category of punishment would be what's called corporal punishment, or like it says flogging here. Basically, man,
lashes,
getting beat. So some things here: false accusation of wife's unchastity. All right, swearing, taking God's name in vain, cursing God's name, substituting a vowed animal, taking. It was like the one about taking the bird out of the nest. That was an unusual passage.
Yeah.
Refusal to perform positive commands, marital intercourse in public. No, that's not that in there. He says that on the list. I'm like, I don't think that. I think that came from a rabbi.
Yeah, that's what it says.
It says rabbinic.
Okay. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen that one. But, there were several in here that the penalty is to, get beaten for it, and we really frown on that.
What's interesting is that these aren't like what we would have thought. If I were to have guessed what flogging would have been, it would have been like, okay, theft or, something like that. But this is like false accusation of wife, and her having an adulterous relationship or cursing or using God's name in vain. Like that's what gets you flogged.
So imagine every time someone took God's name in vain, they had to go down to the government, down to the courthouse, and there was, a guy whose job it was to appropriately whip you in the right, in the certain prescribed manner with the prescribed tool, and it was like, all right, for this, it's going to be 25 lashes or 40 lashes or whatever it is, and you just he just bop. All right, you're free to go home.
People wouldn't be using
or
God's
like
name in
you
vain
see
anymore.
The false accusation of a wife's unchastity, the public flogs you.
Right. Yeah. So if you say, hey, my wife's been unfaithful, and you tell everybody about it, and you make a big stink about it, and you kind of ruin her reputation, but then it turns out you lied. Well, now they're going to put you in public and say this was not true. He said this, but it was not true, ladies and gentlemen.
Didn't that happen we're
going to beat him for it
in the public's eye recently? Wasn't that a huge court case recently with some famous guy?
I feel like this could kind of be what people dream of in prison. Like, oh, he's going to get what's deserved. These things, like he's going to get publicly flogged by the prisoners.
Yeah.
You know?
And again, was God unjust for prescribing this? No. So, why is it unheard of for us to do? Just something to think about.
We think we're more just than God.
And then lastly, it kind of goes back to some of those banish exile things.
You missed mutilation.
Mutilation.
Yeah.
Oh, the eye for an eye and the tooth for a tooth.
With it, which is only 3 things.
Yeah. Yeah, things that, like, if you cause a disfigurement to someone else,
physical harm,
then you can have that done to you in return, which, is fair, right? Like, it's fair. If you come
and punch someone, they have a right to punch you back.
If I come up to you and I like put your finger in a cigar, chopper, like an old mafia movie, right?
My
And I
fingers
chop your finger off.
He's already having PTSD from lawnmower.
But like, what happens to me, right? Like, what's fair to happen to me that I did that to you? You have to go the rest of your life with a missing finger.
I'll be called
which
Nubs
is wrong.
forever.
Like, it's wrong. Yeah.
Yes.
Which is worse, you know. But like, that's not right what I did to you. So something should happen to me if I do that.
Same finger.
And so like, okay, well, let's do it back. Like that was the old covenant in the way that they did it. And I know that we don't do all of that today, but it's just something to consider. Of like, God was just when it happened then.
Now, just off the thread, I just thought of this. Think about, it says mayhem, intentional disfiguration. Would this apply to all these gender surgeries? People going in and mutilating these children without parental,
yes.
Imagine if we upheld this.
There needs to be something done.
No, I agree with you, but I feel like, could you imagine if we put that
causing a miscarriage was
punishment on doctors for these sex changes on these children at such primitive ages? They don't know what the difference, like how they're feeling, hormones, all that stuff. Like that would drastically change our world and society.
Same with causing a miscarriage. That would change a lot of our society too.
Yeah, I mean these, punishment. I think there should be punishment for abortion. I know people don't think that. I think that. I mean, what's what we're talking about, right?
Right.
There has to be a punish. Someone has to get punished for if it's a crime.
And I mean, it's crazy too to see these videos of these people like, oh, going in for my 9th abortion. Like
we say it's murder. Okay.
Yeah.
Do we treat it like that?
You have no idea. I've seen a lot of that in the adoption world. Just this is my 9th, 16th, 18th pregnancy.
Well, hashtag shout your abortion got a lot of traction a couple years ago after Roe.
That's true.
And then you got to really see the face of it was we're kind of told that, these are, most of these people are kind of, they're innocent. They didn't know they were talked into it by someone else.
Yeah.
And then you find out,
no,
actually that's the minority. The majority are people that know exactly what they're doing.
But yet everybody goes to the extreme case of it's always a product of rape.
Yeah.
But then you have these videos, But anyways,
we're getting on a different topic.
But it's part of it. It's and so all these to say. So we've just gone through a real quick rundown of the categories of crimes in Scripture. I said that.
Banishment. You said it was banishment. Okay. Yeah. There was 5 for that
one. So we've gone through the categories, and my point is not, I don't have a grand takeaway other than this is nothing like our current system at all.
No.
And I just wonder, like, when did the system become mostly you get put in a jail cell for multiple years? Is that a medieval thing? I mean, historically, there was a time when that happened because I mean, I know it just never was
torture in medieval
Well, you
times.
had to sit in that public thing where your hands in your head and everybody walked past you.
And threw tomatoes at you.
I don't know. I would have to look that up. But my point is there was a time when they didn't used to build mass prisons.
No. And I mean, even in early America, they built prisons.
So it was in the culture at some point. But there was a point when it wasn't because this wasn't a part of the mindset of the ancient world to imprison people. It was like, no, we need to deal with it right now in one way or another.
Right.
And if we need to kill them, we'll just do that. But if we need to beat them publicly and say, don't do this again, we'll do that. Or if we need to just kick them out of the community and banish them and say, you can't come back, we'll do that because everybody had city walls back then. But
it's so interesting the level of care for human life and the lack of care for human life in the same culture.
Right.
We care so much for those who have, murdered 4 people, but we don't care at all for the unborn children at all. I mean, they're not babies, quote unquote, terrible.
Well, even if you just look at like the major problem that Memphis has is that a small group of people commit an insane amount of crimes and get rearrested over and over and over and released on bail and released on bail and released on bail.
I thought you were talking about the roads
and the potholes. No, and then someone and they'll finally they do something terrible and they get arrested and it's like you look at his rap sheet and it's like arrested 20 times previously and you're like,
why is he roaming the streets?
So the way we do this is to wait until they really kill somebody. and then say, now enough's enough. And it's like, well, but he carjacked 5 people before, and he burglarized 20 people before, and he had a sexual assault case before, and you just let him out and let him out and let him out. And then finally it's like, well, the line has been crossed. It's like, no, the line was crossed already.
Yeah.
You didn't care about all those victims up until this point. So,
the funny thing is, in this case that kind of started this is like they mentioned the 4 murders and then also burglary. Like,
right.
At what point, like, if Jack the Ripper got put on trial, would we also mention his shoplifting
and
habits?
Tax evasion?
Like, yeah, like, why are we throwing those extra little ones in? But then here in Memphis, they do all these things and we don't care.
And with that guy, the Brian Koberger guy, to me, I understand, like you mentioned, why they would give 4 life sentences,
right?
Because it's primarily symbolic at that point. And it's, if he gets parole on one from some technicality, then the next one is there,
right? But still, like, at that point,
it's not fair. A life in prison versus 4 lives taken is not equal. It's not equivalent.
If you read, on the piece of paper I have in front of me, it gives some of the things he was complaining about. It's complaints and harassment, sexual harassment, threats, that stuff.
He's already been complaining.
Yeah,
in
right.
the 2 weeks he's been
complaining about taunting.
Listen to this one: self-flooding and meal issues. He complained about inmates flooding his cell and missing food items from his meal tray. Mm-hmm. Claiming they didn't meet nutritional standards.
Oh,
wow.
A guy who's murdered 4 people.
He's a complainer.
He's complaining because he didn't get his Twinkie.
He's also
during his meal.
They have Twinkies?
I don't know.
He's also complaining about the threat, the verbal threat,
the taunting,
and he's gotten
But
you wouldn't survive in middle school.
And it's crazy because it says that there's a possibility. Unlikely, but he still could.
Right.
He could appeal if it's what was it? Where was that said?
But the point being, he should have just been put to death for what he's done. And now he's got this whole system he's going to have to navigate.
And now we have to pay for that for the next
on our dime,
80 years.
And so it's unjust. And that's my whole point, is to say you can agree. Now, the world kind of talks, the liberal world talks about the injustice of the prison system because of mass incarceration. I would agree with them, but for different reasons.
Right. I would agree that the prison system is unjust, and that there are people, you have to join a gang to not die.
Right.
Literally, like you will just be beaten.
But what the liberal side means is that people shouldn't be arrested at all for crimes. Like that's a different argument than what I'm making. I'm saying that there should be harsh penalties for crimes that don't include having to navigate a broken prison system where you may get sexually assaulted and you may have to join a gang and you may get shivved and we have to buy you 3 meals a day for the rest of your life and
medical expenses and everything.
That's my problem, is that's not just.
No.
It should be dealt with, and we should use the Old Testament system at least as a guide. Not saying we have to take it wholesale and make people, make offerings to the Lord for their sin if they don't, but there should at least be something taken from that.
We should start banishing people?
Maybe. I mean,
you eat the fat of an animal, banished.
That's right. Well, didn't they used to send prisoners to like islands?
Alcatraz.
And they would just be there by themselves? No, I mean like just ship them to an island.
Like Patmos?
Yeah.
Like John?
Yeah. Again, I don't know if that's right, but I'm just saying.
That's what Australia started as, wasn't it?
What we're doing is completely different than the biblical standard. And that's my point, just to kind of stir those waters a little bit today. All right. Any final thoughts from you guys?
No, I just find it interesting. Like it says pre-conviction behavior. Like Idaho State Police documents describe creepy and sexist at a Washington State University, with faculty members warning he could become dangerous if allowed to continue in academia. Like that's grounds for this man is dangerous. Mm-hmm. And we don't address these things. We just, this happened that one time. Slap on the wrist, and then
they want to wait till he kills somebody to put him away.
Instead of the
but
signs.
They want to put him away forever.
Yeah, hence the problem. All right, guys. Thanks for listening today. Hope this was an enlightening chat for you on prisons, prison chat, hashtag prison chat. Anyway, share this with a friend if you think it's interesting. And you can find all the off-script episodes together without scrolling through sermons in your podcast at kirbywoods.org/offscript. You can also submit us a topic there that you think might be interesting for us to talk about. But anyway, if you're looking for a Bible preaching church, come see us at Kirby Woods Baptist Church, 10:30 every Sunday, Central Time. God bless. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.